Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. After the worst possible result, what steps does the Congress party need to take to restore its fortune? Although that's a question that Congress seems reluctant to face up to, it's the very question we ask in part 2 tonight. But first, after its overwhelming victory, the Aam Aadmi Party faces the challenge of fulfilling its multiple election promises. How easy or difficult will that be? And will it present a clean government to the people of Delhi, or could it make the sort of compromises we've so often seen in the past? Those are the issues I shall put in a moment to one of the most senior leaders of the party and its chief spokesperson, Yogendra Yadav. Yogendra Yadav, let's start with government formation. You have 67 MLAs, but only 6 can be part of Arvind Kejriwal's government. Is he going to have a problem choosing those 6, and could he end up annoying those he leaves out?
It's routine stuff of politics. You always have more people who think they can take up certain responsibilities, and you always have less roles. You have one ticket to give in a place where 20 candidates. That's always the case.
Okay.
And a certain routine annoyance is a routine matter. But my own confidence, the name should be known by tomorrow morning, but my own sense is that you would see a cabinet which would get people's levels of confidence higher.
A lot of that depends upon one key question. Will Somnath Bharti, your former law minister, a man who's charged with outraging a woman's modesty, molestation, criminal intimidation and promoting enmity, be made a minister?
You want me to answer this question now, before the names are announced tomorrow morning?
I want you to give me an assurance as chief spokesperson, as one of the most senior leaders of your party, that a man with that background should not be a minister.
Karan, the case of Mr. Somnath Bharti has been discussed enormously. I think it's you must also be tired of discussing the case, so are we. We gave him a ticket. He is an honorable member of Legislative Assembly. Yes, there have been all these cases that you mentioned. The fact is that we had instituted that the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi, who was not under our influence, had instituted a judicial inquiry. We are waiting for that. In the meanwhile, NHRC had passed some remarks against him, which the High Court has expunged.
Only for one reason in the NHRC case, that in fact they passed those comments without in fact giving him a chance to defend himself. But the truth of the matter is that on the 27th of September 2014, the police charge sheeted him. That charge sheet still exists. Now, I ask you a simple question. One of the most important platforms on which you've come to power is your commitment to women's security. Arvind Kejriwal gave it enormous importance. Will you not make a mockery of that commitment if a man charged with molestation and outraging a woman's modesty becomes a minister?
Karan, this is a completely incorrect statement, because in this instance, it is woman versus woman. This is the case. I mean, everyone knows about it, and thankfully, the very
so you're
newspaper...
dismissing the charge sheet?
Just allow me to say what I'm saying. The case about Somnath Bharti was reported first by Indian Express. I'm sure you would have seen 3 days ago Indian Express's report from Khidki Extension and what women in Khidki Extension think about Somnath Bharti. This happened to be one of the... They clearly said this action has made him so popular among women voters. This was a case of one set of local women against another set of women who happened to be from outside India. This is not a case of a man getting after women. It's women who came to him and said that...
The charge sheet does suggest very clearly, not suggest, state very clearly that he's accused of molestation, outraging a woman's modesty. You're putting that aside on the grounds that this is a case of one set of women against another. Let me bring up something else. It's equally important. Last year in November, when Ram Shankar Katheria was made a minister, your party strongly, vociferously protested because he had cases where a court had taken cognizance. Unfortunately, and this is separate to the case we've been talking about, the same applies to Somnath Bharti as well. His own affidavit in the case of this election reveals that a court has taken cognizance in a case under section 353 for assault and use of criminal force to deter a public servant from discharging his duty. That's assault on a public servant. Now, if you protest against Katheria, how can you make Bharti a minister in the same thing?
There are two different things. I'm not taking any position on Somnath Bhartiya becoming a minister, not becoming a minister. That is to be decided tomorrow. And it is not for me to make any announcements here. It is not for me to say anything on that particular question. But the kinds of things you are saying would mean that we should not have offered him a ticket, that he should not have become an MLA.
Absolutely.
That's
because
what
it's hypocritical to protest in Katheria's case, and then in the very same case where the same thing applies, make the man a minister.
We have always drawn a distinction between two things. There are number of cases against Arvind Kejriwal, number of cases against Manish Sisodia. All these are cases of political protest, where always the charges are obstructing a public servant. In the case of Mr. Somnath Bhartiya, unless the judicial inquiry suggests otherwise, or the court indicts him, any one of the two would do for us. Unless that happens, the case at the moment is one set of his constituents asked him.
But I'm not talking of that case. I'm talking of a different case, which is in his affidavit, where a court has taken cognizance, so it's gone beyond simply a charge sheet. Now, if you protest when Katheria, who has a case where a court has taken cognizance becoming a minister, you're being hypocritical if you let Bharti become a minister in similar circumstances.
You are completely mistaken in this case, Karan, because it is not our case ever that if a court take cognizance of any issue, that becomes a disqualifying thing. The important thing, court taking cognizance of things which are heinous crimes.
Okay.
The ADR makes the distinction.
That's the critical distinction you're drawing.
It's not we. Association for Democratic Reforms, PUCL, all such organizations have always drawn this distinction. Otherwise,
except that I would say to you that assault on a public servant discharging his duty is a pretty heinous crime, and such a man should not be a minister. You don't assault your civil servants.
Karan, because you've actually had no experience of being on the street in public demonstrations. I can tell you some of the finest Gandhian activists that I know, all of them face this charge. You've actually had very little experience of this.
Let me then put my last question about Somnath Bharti to you before I come to the
Why are you so obsessed with him?
Because I think it's important that a party that preaches the highest standards should be tested by its own. That's why I'm putting to you what I think would otherwise be a case of hypocrisy. And I think it's a test of whether you mean those standards that you've set, which are the standards that attracted so many votes to you.
My last question, are you saying there should be different standards? I mean, is your objection to his becoming a minister, or his becoming an MLA, or his being in our party?
In an earlier interview that we did in November, I equally strongly questioned you whether he should actually be given a ticket again for these reasons. But you gave him a ticket. Now that he's got a ticket, and we don't know officially whether he will be a minister or not, I'm asking whether he should be a minister, because I think...
Since we don't know, why don't we discuss it tomorrow?
Because I think it would be nice to get an assurance from you that such a man should not be a minister, because that assurance would be in keeping with the high standards you set. If you don't give me that assurance, then some will say they set very high standards, but they don't give us an assurance they live up to those high standards.
So you want me to give you assurance that one of our MLAs is so bad that we would not make him a minister? You want me this?
Not so bad, but in keeping with the standards we've set, and so that we don't wish to be accused of hypocrisy.
So you want me to announce on the show that one of our MLAs does not meet standards of probity?
I'd like you to say to me, in whatever way you choose to, that such a person should not be a minister in Arvind Kejriwal's government. How you say it is for you to say.
I understand that you don't like him. I understand you have very strong feelings.
Let me assure you.
Of course there's nothing personal. No, I'm not accusing you.
I don't even know him.
You have strong opinions about him, which you've articulated when he was given a ticket. All I'm saying is, why don't you pick it up next when he becomes a minister? Before that, why are we discussing it?
Let's wait for those 24 hours.
Exactly.
The rumor in Delhi, it's more than a rumor, is that actually Arvind Kejriwal probably agrees with my line of questioning and has not made him a minister. It's widely believed that in the list of names given to the governor, his is missing, but we'll only know for sure tomorrow.
If that's the case, and if you believe those rumors, why are we wasting such precious time on your show?
I'd like official confirmation. One last question.
You want me to officially announce the list before it's officially announced?
No, I just want you officially to say to me that you, Yogendra Yadav, as chief spokesperson, believe that such a man should not be a minister.
You want me to say that one of our honorable MLAs is not worthy of becoming a minister? What game are we playing on this show?
One last question.
This looks like a very strange game to me.
One last question. On the 16th of January this year, a court in Delhi asked the investigating officer to get sanctioned by the 27th of March for prosecuting Somnath Bharti. Now that Arvind Kejriwal will become Chief Minister, that sanction will have to be in the first instance recommended by him. Eventually it will be decided by the governor, but the recommendation will go from Arvind Kejriwal. Should, and mark my words, should Arvind Kejriwal give that sanction or should he refuse it?
I would really say, since a judicial inquiry is on, if I was Arvind Kejriwal, I would say, please let's expedite the judicial inquiry. Let a judge, and remind my words, this is not a standard judicial inquiry ordered by chief ministers as it happens to be the case. This was ordered by the Lieutenant Governor, on which we had zero influence.
So you're saying refuse the sanction till the judicial inquiry is complete?
I'm simply saying, I would really get an independent opinion so that the people of Delhi believe that it's not a chief minister trying to defend any of his MLA or minister colleagues.
Protect Arvind by getting an independent inquiry.
Independent inquiry is already on. We just need to get the verdict. Why do we all have a verdict before the judge has given his verdict?
Except for the fact that the court has asked for sanction and set a deadline of March 27th. That's why I'm asking the question. The court is not waiting for an independent inquiry. The court is not waiting as you want to wait for the judicial inquiry. They've set a deadline. The sanction has to be in the first instance recommended by Arvind as chief minister. And all I'm asking is, should he recommend sanction for prosecution? Should he refuse it? Should is the word I'm using.
I do not even know what case has been built, which particular case was presented by the prosecutor in the last 8 months. Honestly, I don't even know those facts.
Let's then leave that aside.
But if that was the case, then whether this judicial inquiry was brought to the notice of the court, whether anyone said, look, this is being looked at, can we get some time? I don't know these things.
Let's then leave this aside. Let's come to the second big issue I want to pursue with you, your 42-page, 70-point manifesto. There are many promises that you simply can't deliver without Mr. Modi A, agreeing with them, and much more importantly B, without Mr. Modi taking active steps to help you. I'm talking about statehood of Delhi, I'm talking about the Lokpal Act, I'm talking about the Swaraj Bill, and possibly also your commitment to restructure the DDA and MCD. Now, how do you propose to get Mr. Modi's support for these proposals?
Karan, you probably didn't get time to read our manifesto. We have not promised statehood. Why don't you read it, since you're so well prepared? Why don't you read those lines?
You're saying to me that statehood is not a promise.
I'm asking you, I'm challenging you on this show to right now read those lines. Why don't you read it?
You may be right. I'm simply asking for clarification.
Karan,
every paper has said that statehood for Delhi is one of your demands. Today, Manish Sisodia has officially said on another channel that when he accompanied Arvind Kejriwal to meet the Prime Minister, they raised this demand. And Manish Sisodia also said that although they'd got no assurance from the Prime Minister, they were told the Prime Minister would look into the matter and seriously consider it. All of which suggests that the papers, when they report that this is one of your demands, statehood for Delhi, are correct. You're telling me it's not a demand.
Karan, I've known you to be a very meticulous researcher. I know you read things before you come on the show, unlike many other anchors. Why don't you read that to me?
I don't have your manifesto with me.
Exactly. That's the whole point.
So just answer my point. It's not there for a demand.
No, so don't hold me in the dock. Probably it's the other way around. You have not read the manifesto. The manifesto simply says the following, from what I can recall. It says that Aam Aadmi Party will, within the constitutional frame, use its moral and political authority to try and seek full statehood for Delhi.
Precisely.
Because that is not.
That's not very different from what I'm saying. Your attempt to use your moral authority to try and seek statehood for Delhi critically depends, just as your request for a new Lokpal Act, just as your promise of a Swaraj Bill, all of that critically depends on Mr. Modi agreeing with you and taking steps to help you.
There's a fundamental difference. Why are you missing the simple point? The Delhi Vidhan Sabha has zero role in passing this, and therefore it would be utterly stupid of any government to promise that they would do it. We have not committed that stupidity.
Even your attempt to exercise your moral authority, its success depends upon Mr. Modi agreeing with you. So I come back to my question. How do you propose to get Mr. Modi to support that demand?
So now there are two things. Number one, we have never made any such promise is a promise is a promise.
You promised to exercise your moral authority.
There are two different things. One is I promise to Karan Thapar, I'll get you Arvind Kejriwal interview tomorrow. The other is I'll try. I'll speak to him. Let's see what happens.
What about
two different things?
I accept the difference you're making. You will try, and therefore, if you fail, it's not a promise of letting down. Because an attempt to try doesn't guarantee a promise to succeed.
It is, which would be a foolish on the part of anyone who has read the Constitution of India to promise a statehood from a government of Delhi.
What about your commitment to passing a new Lokpal Act? What about your commitment to the Swaraj bill? Now, I'll tell you why those are problematic and why you need Mr. Modi's support. And without Mr. Modi's support, you can't deliver. Because you know, and I know, that the Delhi Assembly cannot make laws that are repugnant to laws already made by Parliament. Unfortunately, if your Lokpal Act either conflicts with or in some way goes beyond the law already passed by Parliament, it will be repugnant to that law, and it cannot get the nod that you need unless Mr. Modi is prepared to change the law in Parliament.
I don't know which lawyer is advising you, Karan. I think it's time to change.
Shailaja Chandra, former Chief Secretary, Delhi, not only has said this on a telephone conversation to me, she's written about it in the Indian Express yesterday.
The point is repugnant to the central law. That's
repugnant in this instance doesn't actually mean something that is repellent, simply that's something which conflicts with, doesn't accord with, goes beyond, or in some other way is in conflict with.
If we carry the spirit of the basic Lokpal Act beyond what anyone else has provided for, to my mind, it is very much in accordance with, and that is for the courts to decide, number one.
Precisely.
Number
so when
two,
you say to my mind, and it's very much for the courts to decide, you're actually agreeing with me that there is a legal issue here. And that legal issue means that you may not be able to deliver.
Karan, we have promised to pass those bills in the assembly.
Oh, pass them
no
you can,
one.
You have a brute majority. Whether that will thereafter get the nod is another matter, because these are bills where a further nod from the centre is necessary.
Karan, in any case, if after the Delhi Assembly has passed certain acts and someone takes it to the Supreme Court, some central government says we will sit on it, just listen to me.
Not sit on it. The central government simply won't give its nod. And therefore it won't become effective and get implemented.
Which is sitting on it. That's exactly what the expression means, Karan. If the central government sits on it and those things happen, then it is in the public domain. What we have promised is we will do what we can do.
No, you didn't actually say we will do what we can do, because that phraseology means we'll go as far as we can, and if we don't actually succeed, fine, so be it, but we'd have done our best. Your manifesto actually gives the impression that you will succeed, not that you will do your best but fail.
Karan, a manifesto that you have not read. You have
this element of the manifesto I have read.
Why don't you quote it?
I don't have it
here.
I don't have it here with me, but I've read it. I don't carry the manifesto with me. It's a 42-page document, 70 points, but I have read
Karan, since you are so very sure of what you are saying.
I am in this instance.
And usually you are very well prepared.
I am. That's why I'm questioning you.
We are simply saying we will pass this bill.
Precisely, but when you pass the bill, the assumption and the impression you're giving the voter is that in passing the bill, it will become law. What you've left out is that you're passing the bill without Mr. Modi giving the nod means it won't be law, and I'm therefore coming back to my question. Without Mr. Modi's actual effective help, you can't deliver these promises. So you're proving my point.
You mean to say we should have said that we will try to befriend Mr. Modi, we will have a deal.
I'm just simply asking you, how do you propose to get his support?
In which case, I would have Karan Thapar, aggressive as usual, perfectly sure as usual, saying, so you are tying with the BJP, Mr. Yadav, admit on my show.
No, you're a very good responder to question, to deflect the question. But the question remains what I said. You see, all I said was this. There are critical promises you've made which you cannot deliver on without the active support of Mr. Modi. And my question was, and I'm repeating it, how do you propose to get Mr. Modi's support for these measures? Let me give you the example of the Swaraj bill. The Swaraj bill conflicts at the moment with the MCD Act, which is an act passed by Parliament. As Shailaja Chandra pointed out in yesterday's Indian Express, and as anyone else will tell you, your Swaraj bill cannot become law unless the government in some way finds a way, that's the central government, of accepting it. Once again, you can pass it, but it won't become law.
Number one, Karan, let's get it absolutely clear, and it is elementary logic. I'm not saying something very sophisticated or slippery. We are saying, if you give us vote, we shall pass these things in Delhi Assembly.
And that's all. After passing, they won't be law. That's the point I'm pointing out.
If the central government tries to come in, I mean, your assumption is that central government would act nasty. Your assumption is that central government would try to play partisan.
It's not nastiness, it's not even partisanship. The central government has a right to say that if a law or a bill passed by your assembly is repugnant to a law already in existence passed by parliament, then they need to give their permission and they have a right to refuse it. And all I'm saying is, how are you going to persuade Mr. Modi to give that permission rather than refuse it?
Karan, you've got a wrong guest on the show. You actually should have a BJP person sitting here. You should be asking him, if Aam Aadmi Party has come with this kind of mandate, will you stop them from carrying it out? You would be more aggressive and your aggression would be correctly directed.
No, I've got the right
It's
person.
somewhat misdirected today.
I'm saying to a person with a fantastic mandate that some of the promises they've made you can't deliver on. You can only deliver insofar as you pass the bill in your assembly, but that won't actually make it law, and that critical difference is what I'm questioning you about. That difference is something that your manifesto didn't make crystal clear. I'm now teasing it out and putting it to you. You can pass the bill on Swaraj, you can pass the Lokpal bill, you can try and make all suggestions to restructure MCD and DDA, but if Mr. Modi doesn't agree, they won't happen.
You probably know that he would not agree. You should certainly interrogate them on whether they should agree or not, but as long as, you know, for example, you make a promise, I will have Yogendra Yadav on my show today, and then somebody out on the door stops me from entering, are you breaching a promise?
I don't think the two situations are analogous.
Why not? Why not? You are saying what is in your control.
That I have invited you, and if one of my people then stops you entering, then clearly
one of your people, yeah, absolutely. Now you got it right.
But
absolutely.
By the way, Mr. Modi is not one of your people. That's the difference. You made the promise contingent upon Mr. Modi accepting something that he may or may not want to do.
Karan,
when
now
you claim you're delivering, you're assuming that Mr. Modi will agree, and I'm pointing out to you that assumption that Mr. Modi will agree is a false assumption. And by the way, it's not me alone. Every single newspaper, and in particular the Business Standard at great length, has pointed out what I'm pointing out to you. It's just that when I pointed out to you face to face, it's suggesting to you that your manifesto wasn't as upfront and honest as it could have been or should have been.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point, the flaw in your argument. It is absolutely correct, legitimate for newspapers or anyone to say whether Aam Aadmi Party would be allowed to carry out its promises, and it is another thing to say whether they were making false promises. These are two entirely different issues. Right.
We've gone around this one at great
in this case, yeah.
Let's come to another manifesto promise.
I really think we're going around absolutely
let's leave
non-things.
No, I'm not sure if it's a non-thing, because let's leave it for the audience to decide.
Your show is being watched very carefully, and I don't know if you're utilizing your time very well.
I believe I am. You may disagree, that's your prerogative. Let's leave that issue for the audience to decide whether you're right in claiming that if you fulfill the promise in terms of passing the bill, you fulfilled your manifesto, or whether I'm right in saying that fulfilling the promise in terms of passing the bill is not sufficient, because if Mr. Modi won't agree, the promise doesn't become a reality. But let's move to another promise. Let's not carry on with this.
Let's not carry on it, because
I think it's
so far we have spent a lot of time discussing a 10-month-old issue on which you and I have debated 5 times.
No, I think
we have also spent a lot of time discussing what Mr. Modi would do or would not do.
These are issues that are important, that need to be discussed. If you, in discussing them, want to prolong the discussion into then questioning my right to raise it, you have a right to do that. Let's now come to two other promises.
Irrelevant.
Well, let's then come, if you think it's irrelevant, give me a chance to come to two other issues. There are three more that I want to bring. Many people believe that the two promises which attracted for you perhaps the great support you got was the promise to reduce electricity by 50% and to give each household in Delhi 20,000 litres of water free a month. How's this to be paid for?
Do you know the amount involved?
Well, one paper estimates today that the cost of the subsidy, if it is a subsidy, will be between on electricity will be between 1,400 and 1,600 crore a year.
And do you know how long it will continue?
But that depends upon how you do it, you see. That's why I'm asking you, how do you propose to pay for it?
Again, why I'm asking you, Karan, have you had the time to read the manifesto?
Absolutely, I have. And you see, by questioning whether I've read the manifesto, all you're doing is deflecting the argument rather than answering the question.
Karan,
and I think you should now adopt a new tactic, because this is simply being obstructionist.
Karan,
I'll tell you why I asked the question.
You have a show on my manifesto, and I can't even ask you whether you've read it.
I've read it. The point is,
Please
every
tell
time I
me
say
that.
I've read it, you then ask me to repeat the lines. I don't carry your manifesto to repeat the lines. The question I'm asking is
If
this. Look,
you
let me finish
say-
the question, then you answer it. If the cost of the reduction in the price of electricity is to be a result of rationalization of electricity bills and an audit of discoms, it could take a substantially long time to happen. Months, possibly, arguably, over a year. However, if you want to do it immediately, you'll have to do it by subsidy, which is precisely what you did the last time you were in power. And if you do it by subsidy, it means the taxpayer is paying. Now, which is it? Will it be done as a result of rationalization and auditing, in which case it won't happen for at least a couple of 8-9 months possibly, or a year? Or will it happen by subsidy, in which case you and I and other taxpayers are paying for it? Which is it?
Okay, now can I answer? On water, Delhi already had a 150 crore rupees subsidy before our first government came. This additional subsidy would cost 250 crore rupees, part of which would be met by cross-subsidizing those who consume more than 700 liters. This
So
is a
the
standard
taxpayer
fact.
will pay for it.
Sorry?
The taxpayer will pay for it.
Karan, who is a taxpayer? The poor person who goes in the morning and buys a salt is a taxpayer.
I'm not saying one type as opposed to another type of taxpayer. I'm simply clarifying this subsidy on water the taxpayer pays for. You've just made it clear.
Yes, sir.
What
The
about
government,
electricity?
Karan, the government pays for it, and the government is run by taxpayers' money.
Absolutely.
Unless there is
So
a
the
loot
taxpayer
involved
pays
in
for it.
this.
So the taxpayer
pays for it, and the taxpayer benefits from
And
it.
is that also the case with the electricity?
If you allow me to say that, on the water thing, taxpayer pays and taxpayer benefits. Please remember, the beneficiaries are also taxpayers. This whole language of taxpayer pays for it assumes that only 10%
What
are
about
taxpayers,
electricity?
others are not.
What about electricity?
On electricity, we have said that we would have audit, and pending the audit, as an interim relief, we would offer subsidy of 50% flat,
We
which
don't
would
know
cost,
how long that interim relief will have to run. It
Yes.
could be a year, it could be less.
or much less. Going by this morning's
once
report,
again-
there is a report this morning which says that CAG audit has already found substantial confirmation of Aam Aadmi Party's reading of the Delhi
It's a
electricity
newspaper report
situation.
at the moment.
At the moment,
The
it is.
actual audit is neither with you nor me, so we're only relying on a newspaper. You're
So-
hoping that the subsidy will be for a relatively short period, not a long period. But what we have confirmed is that in the first instance, both the water and the electricity will be covered by subsidy.
In the case of water, not just in the first instance.
Right through, in fact.
Of course, we are
Quite
saying
right.
that.
Okay.
And
Let's-
it would be cross-subsidized. What you have not realized is that there
Absolutely.
is a
Cross-subsidized
cross-subsidy,
simply means that one lot of taxpayers will pay a little bit more than others,
which means that in a water scarce
which is not
city,
good news for them, although it is good news for others.
Karan, it's a very good news environmentally. Those who use water excessively will pay more for it. In a water scarce city, the most ecologically sensible
On the
policy
water, you're talking about
is-
the environmental concern. Let me put this to you. The Times of India yesterday says that the Haryana Chief Minister, Mr. M.L. Khattar, has said that Delhi cannot rely on Haryana to fulfill its water needs. Separately, the Business Standard has revealed that Delhi already faces a 24% shortage in water, and the overall loss because of faulty distribution is said by the paper to be 40%. In those circumstances, if you now start giving each household 20,000 litres a month free, you could end up grossly exacerbating Delhi's water problem rather than ameliorating it. You may ameliorate for some who have no water at all, but overall for the city, you could create a bigger problem.
It's factually incorrect. You don't realize what is 700 liters of water for a family of 5, which is only 140 liters. 140 liters is something which is consumed by global standards, by WHO standards and norms. It is 200 liters per person per day is the minimum they think is required for
But you're
dignified
guaranteeing
human being.
20,000 per month per household free.
That's what I'm saying. We are only pegging it at 140, not even 200. That the WHO has
But you remember,
specified.
there's a water shortage in Delhi, and the overall loss is 40%.
Karan, there are 3 different issues for water. Since you have some appetite for details, let me give you. One is overall quantum of water available in Delhi, which is related to the Haryana question.
Absolutely.
Which Mr. Modi had 15 days ago claimed that he has solved it forever.
But Mr. Khattar says something else to the Times of
So
India
Mr.
yesterday.
Modi and Mr. Khattar need to sit down once again. Number 2, is about distribution, and that's where you're absolutely right. The leakage problem is a very serious problem in Delhi, and we had actually found out that the Delhi Jal Board has no way of finding out what the leakage is.
Absolutely.
And in our detailed manifesto, in our detailed blueprint for that, we have said installing big bulk water meters at every point would be priority. So cutting down on water leakage is a very important point on our agenda, which has nothing to do with the question of subsidy at 20,000.
Let me accept all that.
On water, the real issue is not pricing. The real issue is supply and quality of water.
Well, absolutely. And the problem about supply, as I pointed out, is the shortage. And if you're guaranteeing a certain level of free water when you've actually got a shortage of water, you could end up creating a bigger problem.
Not
you
at
don't agree.
all.
You
Because
clearly don't agree.
for a very simple reason that anyone who has tap water available in Delhi ends up consuming this much. No one is going to increase their consumption because they are getting it free, because this is the minimal level human beings need to survive.
All right. Let me then come to one last question. Overall, if one looks at your manifesto, you're promising to put up CCTV cameras, although it's not in your manifesto how many you'll do. Arvind Kejriwal, at the time he launched it, talked about somewhere between 1 million and 1.5 million, 10 or 15 lakhs. That was a verbal thing, it's not part of your manifesto. You're also going to construct 2 lakh toilets, 500 government schools, 20 degree colleges. You're going to create 30,000 additional beds in government hospitals. But, and this but is very important, at the same time, you've also promised to reduce VAT. Your actual words are, you will have the lowest VAT in the country, and there are several states that at the moment have lower VAT than Delhi, therefore you're reducing VAT. Now, the problem is VAT accounts for 67% of Delhi government revenue. So what you're doing is, on the one hand, you're committing yourself to expenditure of a substantially greater amount than previously, at the same time as reducing government revenue, because your VAT income will go down substantially. The two just don't add up.
Now that's a serious question, and I really hope we had spent more time discussing complex questions like this. This is a serious challenge. The evidence that we have, and I thought you would applaud a government which has complex understanding of this kind, that if you lower the rates, compliance actually goes up. This has been argued very seriously by economists, and actually over the last 20 years in our country, this is exactly what we have seen. So the assumption, which is clearly stated in our documents, is that if you lower VAT rates and if you change that presumption where every trader is presumed to be guilty, compliance would be better and collection would improve.
This is the good old Laffer curve. The elasticity of people's ability to spend will increase because the cost of what they're buying goes down, therefore they'll buy more, and therefore as the taxes go down, the amount of the commodity that is bought increases, therefore government revenue will increase.
It's not about cost and demand, it is about, I mean, there's something different at work here. The different at work here is that if you lower tax rates, and it's not about you're not buying anything, if you lower tax rates, you encourage people to stop doing business in black. You bring in more and more business in white, which is what we wish to encourage. I'm not sure whether lowering VAT will convert business from black to white at all, because VAT exists entirely in the white market. But I'll accept that you've done what classic economic theory says should work. All I wanted from you was that explanation or that clarification that here you are relying on classic economic theory. Lower VAT means more business, which means more revenue, which means you can then fund more expenditure. And there is no 100% guarantee that it will work. You have to look at no 100% guarantee it will work. Karan, I'm actually saying what you would have liked me to say, and that's why this combat is unnecessary. I'm saying that actually you try an experiment, you learn from evidence. This is our initial assumption. We are saying if we lower it, our collection should go up. If it doesn't happen, we learn. Every government learns. I applaud you. 2 quick questions before I end. You've promised to regularize unauthorized colonies and provide plots for flats in the same location as the existing slums. But only the Urban Development Ministry can actually change of land use. That power and prerogative is theirs. What if Mr. Venkaiah Naidu doesn't play ball? We have, number one, Delhi government has to take a series of steps before the final act of regularization can take place. That's why, the BJP's announcement that they have done regularization was a plain lie, because nothing of that sort has actually taken place. In your case, what if Mr. Naidu says no when you come to that stage? Number one, our promise is to bring it to that stage. And number two,
well, this is like the earlier situation where your promise is to simply do everything you can, but you excuse yourself if that final step which lies in the prerogative of the Modi government doesn't get taken. You're promising all you can do, but not success.
you want me to promise what the central government can do.
Unfortunately, your manifesto didn't make that crystal clear. Once again, I'm coming back to a situation where your manifesto, what I would say, fell short of full clarity.
Part of it is that you have fallen short of reading the whole manifesto.
Oh, no, that's not true. But you can make that charge if you want.
In all these cases, we have gone into details. And for the first time in the history of Delhi, one party has cared to give detailed blueprints, including saying what we will not be able to say.
I don't want to go around again into an argument we had earlier in connection with Swaraj and Lokpal. Once again, you're
come to the real
promising
question
something
on
that Mr. Naidu needs to okay before you fulfill it. Otherwise, it will be completed as far as you can take it, but that won't be the full final result. It will be short of success.
If Mr. Modi's government, if the BJP government is hell-bent on denying us, our government, the basic right to carry out our mandate, then yes, they can deny it. I agree with you, but I do not agree with your presumption that they would do so. I believe, can I complete what I'm saying? I do take heart from the fact that BJP has not one or two but 7 MPs from Delhi who all have promised to regularize
But remember what Mr. Naidu said after he met Arvind Kejriwal: our cooperation depends upon their operation. And therefore he was leaving some gap between the question of how much he will do to help you. But you may be right, he may well do it.
I do not have any special insight into how their mind would operate.
My last question.
But my belief is in the spirit of federalism by which this country is governed. The Prime Minister ran a very aggressive and somewhat vicious campaign, but as soon as the results came, he called him. I continue to hope and believe that BJP, which has promised in every single manifesto that there would be a full statehood, they would wish to respect their own manifestos.
You have every right to that hope. Let me end by pointing out this to you. When it comes to your manifesto, there are a series of critical, enticing promises made, which you can only do so much to take through, but the critical last point, before they actually happen, lies with Mr. Modi. Whether we're talking about the Lokpal Act, whether we're talking about the Swaraj Bill, whether we're talking about authorization or regularization of unauthorized colonies. And the second element of your manifesto talks about key expenditure, schools, colleges, hospital beds, where once again it depends critically on whether you can increase revenue by cutting VAT. That's a gamble that you've taken. Economic theory often suggests you'll succeed, but there are cases where theory goes wrong. Those are two critical, I would say, gambles that you've taken in your manifesto. Modi has to help you with one, economic theory has to help you with the other.
In both cases, I would request you to consider the following. Number one, in the second case, we are not depending on a gamble of economic theory. We would look at the evidence and revise our strategy in the light of the evidence. So it's not just economic
There's room for revision. There is room for revision.
Of course, yes, you got to revise it. Every government does it every single year. You have budget figures, you have revised budget figures.
Is as honest and open as Yogendra Yadav. Let me tell you,
why should we
I
not have an honest conversation
from other parties. I've interviewed people of your party. They're not as open as you. I may have given you a tough time.
It's an honest conversation.
I may have pointed out things that you thought were unnecessary to point out because you weren't misleading, and I felt you were not being as honest as you should be. But you've answered my questions more fully than practically any party spokesman I've come across for a very long time. And for that, I'm going to break tradition and reach out and congratulate you. Thank you very much indeed. I've gone horribly over, Yogendra, so I'm going to have to end here. Thank you, and say, I hope that this is an object lesson for other politicians to follow when we question.
Thank you if you think so.
Many
thank you very
indeed.
much.